If you have a baby that's pretty easy to put to sleep but they just won't stay asleep, then this video is for you. My name is Bridget Jensen, and for the last 10 years, I've been helping families with their sleep, both in-home and online. There's a few key things that I tend to see over all the families that we see, whether they're infants, toddlers, preschool, or school-age children. And there's obvious things you've probably heard a lot about, right? Like where your little one sleeps, what their timing looks like, and how you prepare them for bed. But there's something especially interesting about getting curious on how does your little one actually fall asleep. Every day all over the world, there are babies who are nursed or fed or rocked or bounced or held to sleep, and they sleep beautifully. As you can imagine, I don't hear from those parents. But I do hear from people who will say, you know what, my baby is so easy to put to sleep. They just won't stay asleep. So they have a false start at bedtime, they're waking frequently through the night, or they're king or queen of the 30-minute nap or the 35-minute nap. Very common, but let's see what we can do about that. There's usually a pretty clear explanation. I'll often say the reason your little one is not staying asleep is because of how they're falling asleep. Let me explain. There are a few things you can look at straight away that are pretty easy to check off your list to try to keep your little one asleep. And most obvious would be the environment they sleep in. The room I'm in right now is pretty well lit. I wouldn't say that's a great sleeping environment. So think, can I make the space darker? Is the space a good temperature, somewhere between 20 and 22 degrees Celsius? Is there some white noise or a background noise going on to help dull out those neighborhood and household noises that might pull my baby from sleep? Or let's get curious about their attire. Are they wearing a warm sleeper or a pajama that's suiting the weather that we're in right now? We can also look at their diaper. Did they have a fresh bum before they went down? And do they have a full tummy as well? Let's get curious about their feeding before they go to sleep. These are all things that are day to day you can adjust and tinker with to see. Even after we comb through all of that and get it out of the way, there's still often this piece of how is my baby falling asleep? So let's say like 70% of the kids that we see, your little one feeds to sleep. Well, we have to feed them. We can't very well stop that. But how can we separate the association between eating and sleeping? And that's where our work can be done. This can look like bringing a feeding earlier so that it's not so close to sleep time. It can also look like getting curious about the nipple size on your bottle. Are they on too small of a nipple? Therefore, they're really working hard, getting drowsy and getting sleepy on the nipple of the bottle, and then you're trying to transfer them down. You might know that story very well. At the root of all of it though, whether your baby feeds to sleep, needs motion to sleep, or being held to sleep, we like to change the how, and that can feel really uncomfortable. So as I mentioned a bit earlier, the easier things to do are make sure our environment's in tip-top shape, the lead up to sleep is in great shape. You likely have some kind of routine, which could be getting washed up in the bathroom and then having a story, maybe a feed, and into bed they go. We basically want to let them find their own way to sleep. Let them motor around their crib and get in weird positions as long as you're feeling safe about it. This is why we always make sure their sleep space is in tip-top shape in terms of safety. The crib is nice and low, empty of clutter, firm mattress. You know all of this already. And the thing is, if you put a baby down awake and aware in their space, you might already be like, alarm bells are going off. There's no way they're going to go for it. They're going to be mad. They're going to be sad, all the things. And you're probably right about all of that. But there are things that you can do to lead up to sleep in a way that really sets them up to find their own way to sleep, including great routine, good timing, a safe sleep environment, and having responsive parents in the house. These are all important pieces of excellent sleep hygiene. But let's say you go into an evening and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna let them try to find their own way to sleep tonight. It can certainly feel uncomfortable and weird, and they might already be like, this is strange, especially if you've changed anything in your typical lead up to sleep. Instead of, let's say, holding them to sleep, you've put them down wide awake and they're like, what is happening? Or more specifically, they're crying, upset, maybe standing and absolutely furious. And this is where the conversation around sleep training can be interesting because you can stay crib side, you could do a leave and check. There's a whole world of options out there on how you choose to support your little one through this big adjustment. But the key with getting them to fall asleep in their sleep space is to just let them motor around, find their way, get in their awkward positions. Because the thing is, we all cycle through sleep all night long. That's never going to change. Your babies, your kids too. And if you are in charge of putting them in a particular position on repeat all night long, that's likely not going to change. The more that your child is in control of falling into a state of sleep on their own, the better their sleep will be. If you're tied to every journey to sleep, and every time they wake, you have to send them back to sleep, that can become really a lot to be dealing with, and no one's getting good quality sleep. So let's look for a radical change in perspective. We won't put our baby to sleep. We'll get them ready for bed so that sleep will come. So the beauty in giving them the space and capacity to find their own position for sleep and their own journey into sleep initially is then it's fair to replicate that all night long. So let's say they fall asleep in their crib initially and they're maybe upset at first, but you offer comfort, you offer support, they finally fall asleep, fantastic. And then they wake their classic 40 minutes later, right? Or they're 3 minutes later as you're getting into bed. You know this story so well, I bet. But then they wake up, they look around, and they can fall back asleep because they're used to that space. They're not seeking and reaching out for that same ticket back to sleep that you've been offering all this time. It can be a really hard sell for me to say to somebody who has a peaceful, easy bedtime. Baby goes down sleep, no problem, but then they're waking many times through the night. And then I'm saying, we're actually gonna rock that boat at bedtime. We're gonna make a massive change around how they're falling asleep so that they're able to get used to falling asleep on their own so that they can have the capacity to have long, amazing stretches of sleep at night. And you probably know this well, the best quality, most restorative sleep is consolidated long stretches of sleep. This is why it's a priority to pave the way for your little one to have that great sleep. And of course, I'm thinking about you too, because your sleep matters as well as the person that takes care of everyone in the home. So although it can feel awkward, uncomfortable, even stressful to go about making changes to sleep, often changing that how is your ticket to lengthy sleep ongoing. And the cherry on top is when you teach a little one to fall into sleep on their own after going through a loving routine with them, is they don't outgrow that. They don't learn to stand and you have to redo everything because now you're teaching them to drop down and go back to sleep. They already know how to find their ideal position. Now you might see some wobbly walking around or bouncing or making different babbling noises and things that they're learning, which is amazing. The crib is a great space to practice those things, but you don't have to redo this every time. It's the safest way to go. It's the most restorative sleep you'll get. Get curious about changing the how, and if you need help, that's exactly what we're here for. You can always reach out at betterbedtime.ca. Take care.